Back in 2016, Britain began going round in circles.
We're taking back control.
The referendum result was clear enough.
The British people have spoken, and the answer is we're out.
If only it were that simple. 53 days until we leave, and we know clearer how it's going to happen.
The ayes to the right, 202. The noes to the left, 432.
The government and the opposition promised to deliver Brexit, so far without conspicuous success.
It is clear that the House does not support this deal, but tonight's vote tells us nothing about what it does support.
It's embarrassing to be part of a system which is so, frankly, messed up.
I've been away from Westminster hearing what voters make of it all.
You're happy with a no deal?
I'm happy with the no deal.
So the real problem has to be addressed, and it's not the EU.
I've been shadowing backbenchers and eavesdropping on Parliament's plotters.
Neither side, Labour or Conservatives, is talking about the national interest.
We have to make decisions, that's what we were elected to do.
Clean global Brexit, getting the country ready, WTO terms.
Everyone's calling for compromise without much wanting to compromise themselves.
Good evening, it's question time, extra time coming up. We're taking your calls on the topics raised on the programme. There'll be a fair bit of Brexit, I'd have thought.
3 weeks ago, Britain sank deeper into limbo when MPs voted down the government's Brexit deal.
Just Parliament can't agree on anything.
I think that we just really need to leave on the 29th of March.
They're in headless chicken mode. How on earth do they think they're going to get any sort of consensus out of this?
The ayes to the right, 202. The noes order.
There were cries for a new plan, any plan, to get us through.
I'm actually got to the point where I'm past caring what the deal is we have. I will vote for it, to get a smooth exit.
The government looked to have lost control of the Brexit process.
There can be no doubt that this is indeed a zombie government.
We had that same arrogance, unwillingness to listen, which has brought us to this position.
MPs were too busy squabbling amongst themselves for anything but chaos to reign.
The House must behave with decorum.
While their leaders trade political punches, their backbenchers have to go back to their constituencies and explain to the baffled and angry people who voted them in what on earth is going on. Why haven't politicians got it sorted? I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. East Yorkshire in January, chilly outside, but somewhat heated on the Brexit front. The Tory MP for Brigg and Goole is a committed leaver.
Welcome.
Unlike many Brexiteers, Andrew Percy did vote for Theresa May's deal.
Good to have you here.
So, just how MPs dressed at the weekend. I like your style.
Thank you, I copied you.
Looking good, yeah.
Like all MPs, he's having to explain his stance to his constituents. His challenge is to convince the hardcore leavers amongst them that May's deal is a proper Brexit.
You're an absolute Union Jack Underpants type leaver. What are you more fearful of? Remain or no deal?
I think when people talk about no deal, it's not the outcome I want, because I do think we should leave on a negotiated basis. But the option that is absolutely unacceptable to me and to most of my constituents is remain, because that's not what we voted for.
But he's no wiser than the rest of us as to who's going to get us out of this hole.
I don't think it's clear at the moment who's in charge. There are ministers saying things which are diametrically opposed to one another, and I'm afraid lots of them, leavers and remainers, I think are behaving fairly childishly at the moment. It's embarrassing to be part of a system at the moment which is so frankly messed up.
A messed up system means a lack of clarity, and that's the one thing businesses can't bear: uncertainty.
Thanks for that.
Not least farmers, who urgently want it all sorted.
But you don't get them pregnant.
No, the bull does that.
No, Wouldn't a softish...
Ian Backhouse is the latest in a long line of farmers in his family. He voted to leave the EU.
You could argue that a lot of farmers voted for Brexit, and voting for Brexit was like a bit for them Turkey's voting for Christmas, because there's no guarantee that the UK government post-Brexit will replace the subsidy we receive.
So how much must you dislike the European Union, even though you might be one of the turkeys voting for Christmas on this as a farmer?
It's not a dislike of the European Union, it's what opportunities can we get outside the European Union when we get control back for ourselves.
So Ian wants to leave with a deal agreed as soon as possible. His real beef is with those he believes won't let go of the dream of remaining.
I mean, you're a mild-mannered farmer, but, you know, who do you get angry with?
Westminster.
Yeah, but you can't... Westminster, what, all politicians? So you're annoyed with all of them?
All of them. We can't allow these individual politicised groups to wreck the country. The country made a decision, and then the reason we are where we are today is because every step of the way, people who weren't happy with that decision have started to tried to frustrate the process.
Here in Gaul, 66% voted to leave. We've corralled a few locals together to hear what they make of Parliament's handling of Brexit.
And to show of hands, who voted leave? And who would vote for no deal? So literally, a proper rock-hard northerners you lot, aren't you? Who do you blame for this not working?
For this situation, mostly the blame lies with the Conservative traitors who don't want to abide by the results.
I want to be out of the customs union. I don't want to be ruled by the ECJ.
Why is somebody else telling us that we can't make deals? Who are these people? I didn't vote for them.
Excuse me, may I have a word with you?
Of course you can.
Who's in charge here? Is it Parliament? Is it the government?
I would definitely say that the EU is in a position of power here.
Well, there is 27 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's in charge, actually. You've got very hard lines on either side.
The hardest of those lines right now are around the so-called Irish backstop. That's the indefinite legal guarantee that there should be no hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Brexiteers fear the backstop could effectively keep us in a customs union with the EU forever. They won't sign up to a deal unless it's changed. And if nothing's agreed by the 29th of March, we will leave without a deal. I'm heading down to the bottom right-hand corner of the country and the other side of the Brexit fault line.
Freezing.
In 2017, the voters of Canterbury and Whitstable elected their first ever Labour MP.
Are you the future Prime Minister?
No,
yes.
Thank God.
Many credit the victory to the fact that Rosie Duffield stood as a proud Remainer.
So, how many on your patch?
Oh, I think it's around about 85,000.
Right. How did they vote in the referendum?
I think officially in the constituency it's about 56 Remain.
Rosie takes me to a firm that makes spare parts for boats, Barton Marine. They're convinced, even with a deal, that Brexit will damage their business.
This is our piece parts store. So what we do here, all the parts that we manufacture, and they work their way this way. Joyce takes them, we put them in boxes, and then we are able to pick parts for individual orders, and they go into assembly.
Right, so all this stuff here, you make all this stuff, and then you sell it to people around the world. Yeah. How much of it goes to elsewhere in Europe?
65% of our production goes to Europe.
Yeah.
From our point of view, leaving Europe isn't about losing an export market, it's about losing our home market. Sending stuff to Germany, France, Greece is just the same as sending stuff around the UK.
This is a unique business in my part of the world, and I cannot vote for a deal that's going to put her out of business or move this business away. I don't want Suzanne to leave.
And I don't believe the boss is bluffing when she says Barton Marine may have to up sticks if we leave without a deal.
I think the disgraceful part of this whole Brexit scenario is, in order for Barton to survive, we will have to incorporate in Europe and set up a facility in Europe. There's just no other way for us to do it. And it's disgraceful that I have to take wealth and jobs and move them abroad instead of keeping them here in Kent and in the UK. And that's the shame of this.
I rounded off my day in Rosie's constituency in a pub in Canterbury with some of the 55% around here who voted Remain.
Yeah, I'm here.
OK, well, welcome to this meeting of the Remainer Revolutionary Front here in, here in Kent. What are you all about? Just to give us a general flavour.
We all want to remain in the EU, and that's that we have the best deal as part of the EU as we are now, and that's what we're all fighting for, I think.
And our future globally has got to be about working together, about solidarity with other people over all the issues which we face. They are not going to be resolved by people looking inwards and saying, make Britain great again. So echoing the Trump line on these things.
You lot all want a referendum, presumably? Or you just want to remain even without a referendum?
I don't want another referendum.
Sorry, how are you going to have Remain without another referendum?
I mean, if they vote twice to leave, then I think one accepts it. But it's a totally different clientele now. There should be a lot more students on the books. Quite a lot of the people who voted leave have died. And so, and also 2.5 years have gone by.
People vote! People vote!
The second referendum lot have rallied noisily under the banner of a people's vote.
Hello, London!
But it's not clear if the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn is going to back the idea. Labour's official policy is to push for a different Brexit deal.
No deal must be taken off the table. A permanent customs union must be secured, and people's rights and protections must be guaranteed so they do not fall behind.
But Rose is under pressure from her constituents to go further.
Overwhelmingly, I get stop Brexit emails, or, you know, let's stay in, or let's have a people's vote.
So they're banging a drum. You've banged a fair bit, but you can't sort of bang it back, so to speak, now because of your party's position.
Well, no, we're moving, I think. Well, I hope we're moving towards a people's vote, but we're definitely keeping that option on the table.
The people's vote, tell me how it can possibly end well if that ends up Remain. I mean, there's going to be so many people who are going to feel shafted, for want of a more parliamentary word.
I get that argument, and I don't think it's going to go perfectly well either way. People are really angry, but I think we need to understand why people are angry. They're angry because of some of the things that happen in this country that are the government's fault and politicians in Britain's fault, like austerity. They're not really angry at the EU, I think.
The People's Vote campaign is led by a cross-party group of Remainers.
I think the thing that strikes me in all of this is that Neither side, Labour or Conservatives, is talking about the national interest.
Yeah.
So from your
party
it's all about.
I couldn't believe it this morning.
So
Reunification of the Tory party
so
is
for the
nothing else is
Conservatives,
important.
it's all about keeping the party together, not doing the right thing for the country. And from the Labour side, it's all about Jeremy Corbyn not being called out to do what he promised to do, which is to put forward a proper amendment supporting the people's vote. Because in all of this, he's off the hook again.
The amendments were back in today.
These Tory and Labour rebels are annoyed Jeremy Corbyn hasn't declared his hand on a second referendum.
We have to make decisions.
Absolutely.
We have to make decisions. That's what we were elected to do, and too many people want to obfuscate and avoid making the decisions, which I think is totally outrageous.
Outside Parliament, protesters of all stripes are in full voice.
One, you've got to keep your banner tight. It's no good you let it flop. A flaccid banner's not going to convince anybody. Just helping them with the banner. If it was a Remain banner, I'd help you too.
Inside, in nooks and crannies and tiny offices, some MPs are setting aside party differences in an effort to thrash out solutions to the Brexit gridlock.
I'm in a House of Commons office waiting to meet a couple of MPs, one from each party, both Remainers, and they're pushing like mad for this Common Market 2.0 so-called, or Norway plus if you want to call it that, so the ultra super soft marshmallow Brexit, if you like. Their compromise solution to take Britain out of the EU would keep us in a close economic relationship with Europe. So how did this heartwarming relationship begin? Who was making eyes at who across the floor?
Well, Rob is the chair of the committee that I sit on, the Education Committee.
Oh, so you're making eyes there then? Is that how it works?
So
Metaphorically, I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think both of my husband and Rob's wife, there was a sort of period over Christmas when we were writing this pamphlet where we probably spoke to each other more than we spoke to our husbands and wives.
But actually, she persuaded me outside a corridor just after we had a committee to do this pamphlet. It was literally like a eureka moment for me. I thought, I started to think, why on earth aren't we doing this? Why on earth was this not plan A, let alone plan B?
But it doesn't solve the free movement of people, does it? Well, so what do you do about that?
You're never going to get everything in every deal. But I think this squares the circle.
In another office, the Scottish National Party are hard at it, devising a plan to try to delay Brexit and avoid a no deal.
Said, I mean, the contents of the Labour amendment are not ideal. They're not. No, it's not carried. He said he'll move to the SNP amendment.
Right. Okay.
So at that point, we need to make sure all of our people are in the right place.
We've got all
at the right time.
All 35 are on the estate.
Everybody's on the estate.
For.
I mean, it helps that we've got quite a clear position, you know. Scotland voted to remain, my constituency voted pretty overwhelmingly to remain, pretty much I think every Scottish counting area voted to remain, so we're in a slightly different situation in terms of being very, very clear on what we need to do. We know that we want to remain in the EU and we want to try and salvage as much of our relationship with the rest of Europe.
But what of the Conservatives? Can they unite behind a deal? A lot depends on this man and his group of hardcore Brexiteers known as the European Research Group, or ERG.
I would like the Prime Minister to deliver, and you may think that's naive, but I am going to cling to that hope until it's proved to be forlorn.
The ERG want Theresa May to go back to the EU and demand the Irish backstop be renegotiated. If she doesn't get anywhere with that, they're prepared to leave without a deal. Our Goole MP is in a group of Tory leavers and former Remainers working together to try to save the PM's deal.
This idea that we can reach out across party lines to solve this is going nowhere. And if you think you're going to get more than 2 dozen Labour MPs on side, it ain't happening. So the only way you solve this is within the Conservative Party.
They're discussing what can be done with the backstop to win the Rees-Mogg types round.
If Parliament is eventually able to find something around which we can all agree, and it might be the current deal plus some significant and binding conditions around the backstop, even though we might pass that in the knowledge that Brussels would reject it, at least in a sense it passes the focus of attention back. So this is, in the end, it's about politics.
Another big night in the Commons. I've seen a lot of backbench groups devising their own Brexit plans. Tonight, MPs are getting a chance to vote on some of them.
Division! Clear the lobby!
Most fail. But in a surprise move, the PM herself has supported a backbench proposal to try to renegotiate the backstop.
Order!
Brussels won't like it, but it could keep the Conservative Party together and May's deal alive.
The ayes to the right, 317. The noes to the left, 301.
It passes.
Well, it's quite a big moment. I mean, potentially a big moment. I mean, these things can always unwind.
On a point of order, the point of order of the Prime Minister.
If she can sort out this backstop issue, either through renegotiating that or some other alternative arrangement, then we might just get a deal through. But the important thing is the House has shown there's a majority for something to deliver Brexit tonight, and that's really key. I'm less embarrassed by the House of Commons tonight than I was for the last month or two.
Almost immediately, the EU rather took the shine off things, restating its position that it won't budge on the backstop. A couple of days after the vote, I'm in Fareham in Hampshire to meet their Brexiteer MP, Suella Braverman.
I want to tell you tonight that I am cautiously optimistic about where we are in the Brexit process.
She's invited me to a meeting with her constituents, 55% of whom voted to leave.
Who feels that they knew what they were voting for when they voted?
When we voted in the 1970s, we voted to join the common market. We did not vote for political union. And that's...
My clear preference is for a good deal to be struck with the EU.
If she doesn't come back with a deal, I do believe there is another way through, and that is so-called no deal, or a managed no deal, or a stripped-down withdrawal agreement.
Hard Brexiteers round here believe businesses would cope with a no-deal Brexit and quickly bounce back from any disruption. Most business leaders and economists disagree. One of those at the meeting was a local factory owner, Tony Barnett. His company makes parts for aircraft engines and submarines. He exports a lot, mostly to America, Africa and the Middle East.
I get the trade part, but there's such a thing as sovereignty. Okay. And the sovereignty question, which is why I voted leave, is a big issue.
I take your point on sovereignty, but business-wise, it's not going to be a benefit to you. If anything, you might lose something from it. Is that just a price worth paying?
Yes. We can paddle our own canoe. We've had 900 years of paddling our own canoe, and we can do that again.
Okay, what the argument
But
against...
there will be bumps in the road.
Fareham's MP Suella Braverman and her ERG colleagues are pushing the PM hard to replace the backstop. But what makes her think the EU will now completely change tack?
It seems to me who's actually in charge is the EU. The EU decides what they're going to let us have in terms of Brexit. That is the reality. We're beholden to them. That's the awful truth, isn't it?
I disagree completely.
Well, it's the case so far. They're saying, no, 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 that's that. They're bigger. There's 27 of them, there's one of us. You know, in a fight, I wouldn't take on 27 people.
That's such a defeatist view of our country.
It's realistic. Look, you know, it's realistic.
Where's your
They're
pride
bigger.
and ambition
I've got
for our
pride,
nation?
but I'm not daft. I can't fight the whole lot. And perhaps you can. I'll stand behind you if you like, but there's a lot of them.
We are a valued partner. We're not some fledgling democracy with a fragile economy on the brink of collapse. What you're talking about is exactly why we mustn't take no deal off the table. As long as we can walk away from these negotiations and say, thank you, EU, but no thanks, we're off, and we don't need your deal, and we're going to thrive without your rubbish deal, the better.
One thing I keep hearing going around the country and on phone-ins and everything is that they want politicians to get on with it, to drop their party differences, to break their red lines and just compromise. So you've got to compromise somewhere, aren't you?
Well, I believe I have compromised. There are many aspects of this deal that I have accepted, but there comes a point when compromise tips a balance and becomes total surrender. And the terms of the final deal, in particular the backstop, represented that for me.
Over the past 2 weeks, I've met MPs willing to compromise, but compromise doesn't really thrive in our party political system. I've invited 2 of my new MP friends round for a Brexit-themed lunch. 2 backbenchers struggling to reconcile their own views, their constituents' views and their party's policies.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I think we're on hugging terms now, aren't we? Nice to see you. You're right. Come on in. Thank you. Come on in. Come on in. I've got a Tory here, I'm afraid. Are you all right with that?
I am. Yeah.
He's a Conservative.
Hello.
Really, I've seen you across the chamber, but we've never really spoken.
Come and take your seats. I know your time is busy.
Do we have to sit on the left or the right?
Okay. Well, you'll be sitting on the right. Here you go in here. Hang on a sec. Now this is my red line here.
Okay.
You see what we've done there?
Brilliant.
It's a bit orange.
Okay.
That looks a bit sinister, that layout there. How many red lines have you got?
I'd like a different set of 6 red lines.
All right.
They're a bit wobbly, yeah. They can be all over the shop.
Right.
Yeah, but that's.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
There we are.
So what we've got here is Irish stew.
Oh my gosh! Wow. With a twist. Look at that.
Is it with or without a backstop?
Surely they understand many of us have had it with MPs bickering.
What do you think about the stock of politicians now? Has it fallen? Not you good selves, but I mean generally.
I understand if it has. Yeah, because we are supposed to be kind of guiding people and leading them through on this.
Well, it's supposed to be delivering Brexit. That's what they voted for.
Yeah, well, it's the blind leading the blind because we don't know where this is going.
Do you know the funny thing about this is it's the you know if you think about it as an issue, it's an issue that has probably meant more constituents engaging with their politician than on any other issue.
That's a good point.
The time when I put stuff on Facebook, I'm really surprised, but happily surprised, the number of people who say, I was glued to the TV, even though I'm sick of it, I was glued to the TV today in the debate.
Well, if you drive past a car accident, you can't help watching, can you?
Maybe it's just a bit like watching a tragedy. Yeah, maybe it is that.
Okay, just eat, because then I'll go and get the...
I've got to get these sprouts.
This is another gag, all right? This is Eton mess.
Excellent, thank you.
Well,
And with dessert, I'm dishing up some new research. We've commissioned an opinion poll asking people about the trust they have in MPs when it comes to Brexit.
OK, what percentage figure do you think said they have little or no trust at all in their MPs?
I reckon 2/3 of people probably say they have no faith.
Okay,
that sounds probably realistic.
It is 85% of
wow.
people.
Okay.
Interestingly, asked the same question about the EU. Do you have little or no trust at all in the EU? Only 75%. So people are more distrustful of MPs than the EU.
So are we being told to leave then? Is that?
I don't know.
I mean, it's not great for either of us. 75 with 85.
That's really upsetting.
MPs surely only have themselves to blame for this loss of trust. After letting the public make the big decision on Europe, most of them promised to deliver Brexit. And now they can't agree between themselves how to do so.
The question is, are they disagreeing because of what they believe is in the national interest, or are they disagreeing because of what they believe is in their party's interest? And if it's the latter, I wonder whether they'll ever get the public's trust back.
Whatever happens, we have years of trade negotiations ahead of us. Unless MPs can bring themselves to present a united front soon, this kind of disarray will be with us for many moons to come.